start? Am I doing a 2-day split, a 3-day split, a 5-day split?
Beginners, they get overwhelmed with the amount of options that they have.
A downhill roll after you've made that decision.
So instead of giving you, drip feeding you workout after workout or workout, we give you the tools, systems necessary that you can start building a workout that actually fits into your life.
Once you have those two things in place, you will have the ability to carve the physique that you want.
Welcome to the Lucid Fitness Podcast. I'm Erik and this is Sarah, and we started Lucid Fitness to help beginners find actionable guidance in a sea of fitness and nutrition information.
If you're new to fitness, the question probably that comes to mind is, where do I even start? What days do I work on? Am I doing a 2-day split, a 3-day split, a 5-day split? It's enough to make anybody's head spin. But here, we want to help you simplify, help you find out the core principles that will build a strong foundation for your fitness journey. I think we should start with, can you first explain for everyone listening, what is our first core principle of Lucid Fitness?
Well, the first core principle is to find a routine that fits into your life. It's very simple, but it often gets very confusing when you're online, and there's a lot of different versions of exercises, versions of workouts that people use and people push to you. And so the first principle is kind of grounded in this idea that we want to choose workouts that fit into our life instead of trying to make our life work with specific workouts.
Yeah, that seems to be a pitfall for a lot of people, right? Where you want to go into the gym and you're all gung-ho and you end up biting off more than you could chew, and then you end up feeling kind of like, well, what do I do now? And it all seems to feel like it's a bit of a downhill roll after you've made that decision.
Right, and I think it's a shift of mindset for sure. I think that a lot of people get, especially when they're beginners, they get overwhelmed with the amount of options that they have. And so they just latch onto a specific personality or a specific body type, and they try to take these workout systems that these people who are, they're very skilled individuals, they're good-looking people, but by taking their workout plan and trying to fit it directly into your life, you're setting yourself up for failure a lot of times. And so Lucid Fitness, we want to kind of bring it back to the core principles and help you design a system that fits into your life using the foundation that all of these influencers and all of these people that are usually handing out routines, they're using the same principles just in a different manner. So instead of giving you, drip feeding you workout after workout or workout and making you dependent on a certain person providing a new, novel, exciting workout, we give you the tools and the systems necessary that you can start building a workout that actually fits into your life, right? And so the first core principle is to find a routine that fits into your life. And Lucid Fitness as a whole, we're primarily on the resistance training side of things, where if you're looking to train for a marathon, a lot of these principles will still work, but we're not specifically trying to design systems to get people to run a marathon or to lose 60 pounds in 20 days. We're trying to give you the principles necessary where you can build like a lifelong system. And so one of the core principles is finding a routine that'll fit in your life for any given amount or given time in your life.
Right, and part of that comes with having to be honest with yourself, right? Like, you gotta really sit down with yourself and be like, what can I realistically fit into my life in a way that is consistent? Whether that's, 2 days a week or 3 days a week. I know for us specifically, with my crazy schedule, with the 4 kids, traveling, being on a plane for multiple days out of the week, we've had to go from training 5 days a week to backing it down to 3 days a week. What, in your mind, do you see that as being better or worse? Or is that just an element of what we have to do in our lives to maintain having fitness be a part of your life rather than trying to fit your life into fitness?
right? And that's why this core principle is so important, is because once you get into the habit of choosing routines that fit into your life at any given time, it becomes a lot easier to follow through with your fitness journey. And so I think that the best way it's phrased is, if you have two people and let's say they both want to start a new routine, they're beginners, and one starts a routine that's 5 days a week, an aggressive, something he found on the internet, or they found on the internet. They start a 5-day routine, whereas the other person starts a 2-day routine. And let's say the first week, both end up doing both days, or all of the days in their routine. The 5-day-a-week person does 5 days, the 2-day-a-week does two days, and it works perfectly fine. And then over time, you start to see the life happen, right? And so the person working trying to do the 5-day-a-week, maybe the next week only does 4, and the next week he only does 3. Meanwhile, the person consistently doing 2 days a week across 8 weeks, or however long the routine is, just continuously does it 2 days a week because they chose a routine that's more realistic for their time. And so it's, by the end, they may very well be doing only 2 days a week. The 5 person down to 2 days a week because it fits into a schedule. The 2 person still doing their 2 days a week. And the end product is, in terms of, how much work they actually get done, it's probably about the same. But the psychological benefit of having a routine that you're sticking to and you're going 2 days a week versus the one you're trying to go 5 and you end up only going to 2. Yeah. And psychologically, they feel a lot different. In that one is creating positive feedback loop. Like, I did these 2 days for 8 weeks straight, and the other's creating this negative one. And a lot of the times we see it, the person starting the 5-day-a-week only gets 3 or 4 weeks in before they're psychologically burned out because they're realizing they're missing these workouts, and it feels like a failure. And so pretty much the same product, like the same thing. They're starting a routine, just one is doing one that's above their ability or above their, what their life can accommodate, and the other one's doing one that more fits better in their life. And so the one doing the 2 days a week is always going to come out ahead and more likely to continue on, whereas the one, who's consistently dropping workouts, they're going to feel more like a failure. And that's a huge psychological thing. It's a matter of creating like positive versus negative feedback loop.
Yeah, the psychology of success, right? I'm accomplishing the thing, and it's going to continue to push you to continue to accomplish the thing. Where then if you feel like you're failing, you're not going to want to go back, and then you're going to fall into old habits because it's easier, but also not necessarily easier, it feels better. I think a lot of people fall into that problem and that issue. So basically, step 1, be brutally honest with yourself and what you can accomplish at any given time in your life.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that, like we found, sometimes that ends up having to change. Throughout life as you go, you're going to hit points where you really can do 5 days a week and you're hitting it, you're in the gym and you're doing great, but set yourself up for success. Like, what were you telling me the other day about looking down the road and knowing that things are going to change and anticipating that and being prepared to adapt?
Yeah, it's the idea that we know life's going to happen. Anyone who's lived knows that thing. There's ups and downs of life. And so Lucid Fitness as a company and as, I guess, an idea is the idea that we kind of plan for that, and we understand and we try to ingrain these ideas that these ups and downs do happen, and that's the journey. That's the fitness journey. And so instead of trying to drip feed things to you, we give you the core principles that allow you to really weather the storm, I guess. And so going back to what we're saying about this first principle is, again, finding a routine that fits into your life. It's important in a lot of ways, but it's it starts the like mental aspect of the fitness journey as well, in terms of it really makes you self-reflect, right? And so we aim, and what we try to do is we aim for like a realistic minimum, right? And so obviously you have to do at least some exercise to reap the benefits of exercise. Like you can't go too far one way or the other, but you choose a minimum. Like, what can I realistically do?
Yeah.
Right. And for a lot of people, people with jobs and people with kids, and that answer is a low amount. Like, I could realistically and consistently predict that I can only go 2 times a week. That's perfectly fine, as long as you understand that's your decision and you build a system around that, right? And so, I mean, you can get crazy gains just going 2 times a week. You don't have to get on these celebrity routines, these influencer routines to make gains. In fact, it's actually detrimental, and that's our main argument, is that it's detrimental to try to do that. And so you establish this low minimum of how much work you need or you can give, whether it be 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and you use that as your minimum going forward. And sometimes you'll feel really good, or you have less stressful of a week at work, or maybe you catch the itch, which is very common. And because you've allowed it, instead of it being most of the time you're doing under what is expected, you're doing your minimum, and then occasionally you have those good weeks instead of having the bad weeks. And so it's an inversion of the mindset that most people fall into, where they overshoot from the get-go and have these bad weeks that create that negative feedback loop. Instead, we set ourselves up with a minimum, a nice coastable amount of fitness and a nice coastable amount of nutrition, and we feed into the good weeks and we do extra instead of losing, if that makes any sense. And it's a huge shift of mindset, because there is a lot of pressure to do more. And we at Lucid Fitness believe that pressure is detrimental a lot of the times. And I'm not saying to make it easy on yourself. Fitness and nutrition is difficult. Like, anyone going into it understands that it's going to be more easy than more difficult than sitting on the couch and watching TV. That's just, it wouldn't be worth anything if it was that easy, right?
Everyone would be fit.
Right, exactly. But we believe that, setting yourself up for success is a lot easier than, the binge diets or the binge
that yo-yo effect,
exactly.
Where we're high and then we're low and we're high and we're low, which inevitably always will cycle. We want to have a slow and steady progression forward and up, even if that's just a progression of consistency, because you are able to continue doing what you have set out to do. I love that idea. I really resonate. I know for me, it makes me feel like going to the gym, and it feels like I'm treating myself, right? I'm setting this time aside for myself. have put forward this positive feed loop that even if I am only going 3 instead of 5 times, I know I'm successful in doing it every single week after week, and I'm continuing to see progress in what I'm doing. And I know that for me, that definitely feels so much better than binging and crashing.
Yeah, and it feels better because it feels part of your life instead of something you're trying to force into,
Right.
You're trying to force elements of other people's lives. A lot of the people you see online they're able to do this a lot. They're able to spend a lot of energy and time on this. And so in a lot of cases, they're trivializing the amount of effort that goes into even, starting this and like getting it set up in a constructive way. And that's what we're hoping to bring some clarity on, is like everybody who's gone on this journey has had the same ups and downs. Like that's to be expected. That is the journey, right? To fall off and get back on, and fall off and get back on. Like, we've done it. Everybody who isn't a liar has done it.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's just how fitness and nutrition is, and so we're trying to rein it in and provide a structure that takes into account those unknown life things, and giving you the flexibility and the tools necessary that you don't need when your life changes. You don't need to go find a new influencer to follow. You don't need to go and find a new book to read, because you understand you've built that foundation that allows you to be flexible. And so that's what we're aiming with. But to elaborate on, what does it actually mean? What does it mean to us when I say find a routine that fits in your life? And I kind of talked onto it earlier, but to give more understanding, like, it's very, you just choose a routine and you build a routine that is based on the number of days you can go and how long you can go, right? Because if you can only go twice a week, 60 minutes at a time, you'll never be able to do a 5-day-a-week, 2-hour-a-day routine. It's just, you see how there's you can't follow a routine that will not fit in your life. Maybe you'll do it for a week and you'll feel really motivated, but then again, you'll hit that day where life happens. And so instead of jumping through that, you determine how many days you can go. That's the first piece of the puzzle, right? And so you really reflect on your life. Like, am I really going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, to get to the gym? Like, for a lot of people, that doesn't work. For some, it does. Yeah. And that's that honesty aspect. If you honestly think you can, try it. Experiment with that. But we prefer to take a more realistic approach. Okay, I likely can't do Monday through Friday, but Saturday, Sunday I can. 2 days a week, easy. How often how long can I go when I'm in there? Yeah. Right, 2 days a week. I could probably do it, Saturday, Sunday, for an hour when the kids are with their grandparents or something like that.
Or for however long the daycare is at the gym you're going to.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, okay, so now we know, and now we can build. And in our future videos, we'll talk more about okay, how do we actually, what routine actually goes into this? Because that it's only one aspect of the puzzle to determine how often you can go, but it's important, and an important psychological aspect of choosing a routine. And so you can go 2 days a week, 2 hours at a time, and then you find a routine that works on that. And then you just do it. You do it forever, for the rest of your life. It's easy. The idea is to, again, set yourself up for success instead of failure.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, instead of everyone knows this turn of phrase, falling off the bandwagon, right? Which is, you're riding along, you're going at a pretty good clip, you fall off, you roll around in the dirt for a while, then you stand back up, you catch up, and you get back on. Right. This is almost more taking an approach of, you walk until you jog, and then you run, and then you might need to back it back down to a jog or a walk, but you're always progressing forward, and we're not setting ourselves up to roll around in the dirt for a while. Can you explain for everyone what does 2 days a week, what does that look like? What does a 3-day split look like? What does a 4-day split look like? Right. What are those terms? What are we actually saying when we say those things?
I think that the words matter a lot less than, general ideas, but I think that the words themselves don't matter as much as, the structure of the routines themselves. So when we're talking 1 day a week, generally Lucid Fitness recommends a full body routine, right? Because it's the only, really, if you can only go 1 day a week, it's the only way to create a balanced routine is to hit your full body in that period of time. And so that's kind of a no-brainer. When we're looking at 2 days and 4 days, it's kind of up in the air, but for simplicity's sake, Lucid Fitness uses an upper-lower split, which is exactly as it sounds. On 1 day, say you're going twice a week, on 1 day you'll do your upper body, and 1 day you'll do lower, just again to create balance. And then 4 days, the reason I say 2 and 4 is because 4 days, for simplicity's sake, is upper, lower, upper, lower. Again, a real easy way to keep track of that amount of time. And obviously there'll be infinite arguments about why, so-and-so split is this. We at Lucid Fitness think that's the most balanced way to take it. And, in some cases, men might want more upper days, women more lower days. And so just because there's infinite variability, and we believe in the simplicity, so in effort of retaining that simplicity, we do upper lower on both 2 days and 4 days. And then 3 days and 6 days, we do a very, classic split. It's called push-pull legs, so PPL. It's where one day you do push, so you do like shoulders, chest, triceps.
All those pushing, like if you're going to push a box, all the things that would be used to do that. Yeah.
And then pull being, back and buys.
All the motions if you were like to pull something close to you. Okay, that makes sense.
Legs would be legs. You don't have to explain that, hopefully. But push-pull legs, it's also a very powerful routine. It's one of our favorites. We try to do PPL.
That's what we do. That's what we do on our team.
So like we're either, full bore 6 days a week, PPL times 2. I call it X2, but PPL times 2, you do PPL. And so most people who have read anything fitness understand like PPL is a pretty traditional split. The reason for that is it's, a good combination of muscle groups to work together. And so for 3 and 6 days, we recommend PPL. Again, for simplicity, you could do, with 6 days, you can do all sorts of stuff.
Right.
But we're trying to create a foundation for simplicity so that we don't have to constantly go back, we're going back to, I can only do 2 days a week again. I don't, I gotta go figure out a new routine or whatever it is. Instead, it's like, I know 2 and 4 are upper, lower. So I'll just get on an upper, lower split. And then the most classic in my mind has been around for a while is the 5-day split. Sometimes it's called bro split. I call it a conventional split. And each day will be an individual group of muscles essentially. And so you'll have, this is the typical like Monday through Friday split, where Monday you'll do back, Tuesday you'll do shoulders, Wednesday chest, Thursday legs, Friday abs and arms. That's a very conventional split. Okay. And so when we say conventional with Lucid Fitness, that's it. It's, it's a traditional bro split for the most part. And the benefits of each, they each have their own benefits, pros and cons. I don't really think we need to go into the benefits of it. The reason we use these is because they're easier to structure and they're wildly effective. Like you can take there's people who've had very successful lifting careers just doing full body. Yeah. There's people who've, look amazing doing PPLX2. It just really depends. And because we're trying to structure based on the number of times that we can go, it makes it a lot easier. Just like how often can I go? 3 days, we're doing PPL. How often can I go? 5 days, conventional split. It simplifies it. So there's no guessing game. It's like, should I do this conventional split, this bro split? Should I do PPL, PP? What? It takes away all of the guessing games into there's functionally only 4 different types of routines for Lucid Fitness. There's full body, upper, lower, push, pull legs, conventional. Right. And so we can do any number of days a week. We don't believe, or I don't believe in training 7 days a week. I think you
definitely need a rest day.
But yeah, that's kind of how you decide. You first decide how often you can go. And that tells you, the routine you're on. It's very simple, very clear. And from there you decide, and it's something we'll talk about more in a future podcast. From there you decide based on the amount of time you can go, how many sets you do. Or, for the Lucid Fitness ecosystem, if you use our app, it'll do all of the, once you know how many days you can go, it'll do all the rest for you. It'll just, and we can go more into that later, but it takes all the guessing out of it. And it's just like, how often can you go? Okay, here's a routine, right. There's no it simplifies it as much as possible.
There's none of that initial overwhelm, want to get into doing more fitness. They get either very overwhelmed, or they get put in this kind of frozen because there's so many choices. Like they, just build routine after routine after routine and then never do any of them because, or even the third option where because there's no consistency on what they're doing on what days, they're not really seeing any benefits. Because they're doing shoulders on Tuesday this week and then no shoulders the next week because that was a really cool glute workout, and because there's no consistency, we're not seeing any benefits, and then that's creating that negative loop that we're trying to avoid.
There's a lot of pitfalls for beginners, and you're right. Like one of the analysis paralysis is what it's called. Is the idea that you get consumed by the analysis of what to do and collecting knowledge and collecting information. And at the end of the day, like this isn't a thinking man sport. This is a go and lift heavy things sport, right? Like this isn't, you can't be at home consuming knowledge and get fit. At the end of the day, you have to go and do the work. And so setting you up to be able to do that work with as little friction as possible is our goal, right? And so that you don't have to, in an ideal world, you just, you watch this series, this 7-series video, you read the website, you join the Discord, and you have all of the answers you need for the rest of your life, right? It gives you the mechanism and tools to the point where like you can move on past us because now it's like, I've gotten all I need. We don't drip feed. We're going to provide all of the tools you need to be able to structure these things. But yeah, there's a lot of different pitfalls for the beginner for sure. And I think that the just doing random things, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's ineffective, but there is a certain element of it's hard enough to feel hard, but it isn't as effective as like a structured workout, right? And so what that creates is you're doing a lot of work, but you're getting slow progress, right? Right. And so it creates this scenario where it takes you longer to hit your first like positive feedback loop, which is whether you're internally or externally motivated. It's that point in time where you look in the mirror, let's say you're losing weight, you look in the mirror and you see, oh man, I look way thinner. Or you're trying to gain weight and you go to the gym and the guy you've been seeing at the gym, he's like, hey, you're looking big. Those are the types of feedback loops that create like the psychological mindset that you need to keep going. Nobody would keep doing it without that, in my opinion, of course. Like some people, they run miles and miles and miles because they know it's good for their heart. They can't see their heart getting in better shape. They just, trust it. But I think for the vast majority of people who end up in the gym, like they want to see progress, right? And so we can't deny that. And so by following the Lucid principles, the Lucid Fitness principles, it allows us to hit that positive feedback loop quickly and be able to just continuously, grow, like without having the yo-yo effect, as you put it, of, starting a workout, stopping a workout, starting a workout. That's not to say it's not easy, right? Even 2 days a week, it can be difficult, right? I mean, we're going 3 times a week right now. We're still making progress. It's still a hard workout. It's still a lot to do. It's still on the forefront of our mind, but we've made it so that fitness and nutrition are just part of our life instead of trying to, find the newest, greatest workout and jam it into.
It's about making it something that's in an automatic habit. You don't have to, for the most part, you don't have to think about eating. Like people eat. You don't have to think about sleeping. People sleep. You put having fitness and going to the gym in that category instead of in the, I can splurge on doing this thing this time. It's a different mindset.
I like to phrase it as like 80-20, and we'll talk about this later in the nutrition side of things, but you build a system where you're like 80% motivated about, if that makes sense. And you try not to go all in and burn out, and you try to give enough that you actually get the gains. But once you have like a solid foundation, which is what we're trying to establish with Lucid Fitness, once you have a solid foundation, it feels a lot, I said it earlier, but there's a lot less friction and it feels more effortless. Even though we're doing something that's hard, it feels like it's, just what we do instead of something we're forcing ourselves to do, right?
I like the removing of the friction. And I think that's a great segue for us to go into this next question that I know I get asked a lot, you get asked a lot, which is, should I follow a plan or should I create my own plan?
I definitely think for beginners, it is very beneficial to follow a plan. But with that said, Lucid Fitness we're trying to establish principles where you can ultimately, after consuming our knowledge and using our tools, our app, you can do it yourself, right? And I think there's a huge benefit to following routines that are made by people who understand what they're doing. If you're very, very new to the point where you don't even know what exercises are, or it's you most certainly want to follow your own plan.
Yeah.
But generally, I find that a lot of beginners, they have been collecting knowledge for a bit of time, so they kind of understand. Like, I know what a bench press is, right? I've seen everybody online,
I've seen people do it,
and so they dip their toe in, and I still think that there's a massive benefit to following one. And at Lucid Fitness, we don't necessarily want to give routines. What we've done is we've integrated our philosophies into our app, the Lucid Fitness app. And inside of that app is a workout generator. And we kind of took a more hybrid approach with it, where you put in like I said, you put in the number of days that you can go, the amount of time you want to go, and then the algorithm on the back end generates a workout. And based on, like I said, based on the number of times you can go, if you did 2 days a week, you can go, it'll give you an upper lower workout. And each of the exercises in that workout will be specifically designed for the right spot in the workout, the right muscle groups, the right number of sets, number of reps. It'll calculate all of that for you and give you, for lack of a better term, a template to follow. And if you want to follow it like that, that'll be a perfectly fine workout to follow. And we added, and what I mean by hybrid approach, we also added the ability to change each individual exercise within the constraints of the algorithm itself. And what I mean by that is, like, once you get in there, let's say the first thing you get is squat. You have a leg day, you see the first exercise is squat. Well, you hate squats. You have the option to switch, and it'll give you a list of exercises that actually, they will replace squat. They'll be of the same value as doing squats. So there'd be things like deadlifts or whatever they are, very similar exercises that are effective for a leg, and you can switch it out. And so what this does is it gives you a structure, but also allows you the flexibility of choosing exercises you like. And this is, something you can't really get from a very specific routine. It gives you a specific routine if you want, but it allows you to start like experimenting and trying.
If you use dumbbells over a barbell,
Right.
or say you have an injury and you would prefer to rather not do front squats, you can pick something else that is more feasible for you to be able to do.
Exactly.
And it's more user friendly, unlike a printed workout.
Right.
This gives you the option where it's adjusting for you. You pull it up again, it's going to tell you this is what you did last time, this is what you need to do this time.
Right.
And it also already, like how we talked about the other day, you're creating a puzzle piece for your life.
Exactly.
Rather than looking at a fitness influencer's plan and taking their puzzle piece and trying to jam it into your puzzle.
Right.
This is a tool that allows you to carve and create a puzzle piece.
Yeah, exactly. And it allows you to focus on the things that matter, right? Instead of like obsessing over how many reps or how many sets or how many days or how many, you focus on the things like, what exercises do I like doing? How many times do I like going to the gym? And so our app itself is designed with these core principles in mind, and it creates a seamless experience. If you go to the lucidfitness.com website, read it through, you watch these videos for additional information on the principles that are laid out there, and then you use the application, like you're 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
Right? If I was starting again, I have a lot more experience, but if I was starting again and I had this means, like I wouldn't need to follow like all of these different like revolving door type, influencers. I would instead, just have, okay, this is the knowledge I need, right? Instead of I guess there at the end of the day, it's like if you're the type of person who wants a bunch of knowledge and bunch of science and that motivates you, by all means, you can find that everywhere now. Like there's been a big push for this science-based fitness and nutrition. I do think that there is an element to it that can very easily overwhelm you, though. And so we're trying to break things down into less into the science. Granted, what the principles that we preach do work, and they are rooted in philosophies that have been proven over and over again, right? But we're giving bigger, more general information with Lucid Fitness so that you can kind of fill in the gaps with your preferences, right?
Yeah.
And because those preferences is what creates, longevity in this sport, is by finding, like, the best way to explain it is superfoods. I think it's like, do superfoods matter? Absolutely. They absolutely do. Does it matter? Does a specific superfood matter if you find it disgusting and will never eat it? It doesn't matter at all. And it's the same thing with most of the science in this thing. It's like you can kind of get lost in that because you think like, man, I have to eat chicken 6 days a week. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's not necessary though. And so the core principle, like in using the core principles and using the application, it gives you, all of the baseline stuff that you need to get started, and then you can kind of pick the science you want to add into it, or the tips and the tricks that you want to add into it. As long as you're rooted in these primary like 7 principles, you're going to have a good time. You're going to get progress, and then you can experiment. But unfortunately, a lot of the times people are trying to pull in, before they even have the foundation, they're trying to pull in all these tips and tricks, and it doesn't make any sense, right? Because you're focusing 90% of your energy on the 1% of gains instead of 90% of energy on the stuff that makes majority of your gains. Like those tips and tricks, like, yeah, they have small incremental value, but if you're neglecting these foundational principles, you're just never going to get the results that you want. And that's just the reality of it, because the core principles will take you all the way there. And by the time you get to the level where the core principles, you need to expand beyond them, you'll have the knowledge and the experience to understand where you need to expand. Right? And so we're trying to get you to that level from like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, to a level where it's like, I kind of know what I am doing. As long as I'm using these core principles, I can experiment, try different workouts, try different exercises, until you reach a level, many, many years down the road where everything feels more comfortable. And then you can start making, retroactive, tweaks here and there to reach the next level.
Lucid Fitness is giving you the foundation, and more than that, we're giving you a foundation and then tools to hone that foundation, because once you have those 2 things in place, you will have the ability to carve the physique that you want. Yeah. You will have the ability to then always be able to reference this, but then be on a whole nother level of creating, you know, a house more or less, but it's the house your soul is living in.
Yeah.
You're carving that in a way that suits what you need.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to do trigonometry without having understanding basic algebra, right? Like,
Absolutely.
And so that's what these, like a lot of these science-based like tips and tricks and optimizations are doing is like they're giving you these like very powerful like tips and tricks, but you don't even understand the algebra. Like a tip or trick for this trigonometry, that means nothing to me, you know? And so at Lucid Fitness, we're trying to like wash all of that away instead of spitting out, and I mean, I said it to you the other day, like instead of spitting out the jargon and, you know, all of these, you know, time to failure and this and this and this, like we wash that away. This is what we need as a foundation to launch off. And then when you get to the point where that other stuff is valuable, like you already have a good foundation you built off that you can just, you know, you can plug and play with these other things. And then you plug something in and you realize, yeah, I'm not doing a cold bath every morning, brush it off, you know, things like that. And because you have the foundation, those things become a lot less daunting as well, because it's giving you, you know, the security of a structure, you know, works. And we know it works because you'll follow it and see, you know, like, and at the end of the day, it's like, if the principles resonate with you and you try them, they'll work, right? But if you're in the mindset where no matter what you try, like you're not going to be able to follow through, like that's kind of where the psychological game comes to, and we're trying to get it to a point where like you can focus on that. And a lot of the systems that we're going to build in the future will be focused on the reflective aspects of it, because they laid out the foundation for you. And so you can really focus on like, okay, what do I need to do mentally to get in there? Like I have this routine, I have a means of generating unlimited variety of routines. I have this, you know, application that gives me all of the tools that I need to be successful, and I have the Lucid principles. Like I really can just focus on the head game, you know?
And that kind of leads us all the way back, you know, to end where we started with that positive feedback loop, right? The less friction there is for you to get in, you know, to the mental game is where you then are going to be able to create those positive feeding loops. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one, like we talked about before, you know, being able to be consistent, like we talked about, is going to be a massive part of that. Being honest with yourself is going to be a massive part of that. And then also plugging in, like getting into the community, whether that's, you know, you're working out, you have a workout buddy, or there's someone you meet at the gym who you see and you just, you know, I'm here, you're here, you know, whether that's your partner or that's connecting with the Lucid Fitness Discord and having people who are constantly hyping each other up and continuing to want to help each other accomplish our goals. We want you to create as many positive feedback loops as you possibly can.
Right. And community is a big part of that.
Yeah.
And that's why we're trying to build a community at a core. We went in with the understanding that it's not for everyone, right? Not everyone's going to want to join social media or Discord, although we think it'll be beneficial, especially when it comes to the mental game, because, you know, it's a lot easier to do this when you're around other people who are also going through the same struggles, right? Yeah. And honestly, like we want people as they grow to be able to give back, right? This is how I took these Lucid principles and made it work for myself. You know, maybe it's in a way that you and I have never even thought of.
Yeah.
Like we have no idea. And so that's why we kind of at Lucid Fitness want to create an organic community that can really carve the company out with feedback, right? You know, give us the feedback we need on the application, on the principles, on the community, so that we can keep building something that is infinitely valuable to the beginner. That way, when, you know, after the first generation of Lucid Fitness followers, they move on because they've outgrown our content, they can give back and they can send another person, or they send the next beginner to, you know, fill their spot. And, you know, kind of an alumni experience where it's like, oh, I grew up with Lucid Fitness, and this is how I can give back kind of situation. And as you grow, and ultimately we do want you to outgrow these things. We want you to, take the foundation and reach a point where it's like, man, I can make this better for me, right? Yeah. And we fully expect that.
I think it will be an absolutely beautiful thing, and I'm so excited to do this. It's awesome. It just makes me excited. So all that to say, your body responds to stimulus. Our goal is for you to be able to make that as consistent as possible. And that starts with our first principle, which is choosing a routine that fits into your life. Whether that's 2 days and it's an upper lower, it's a push-pull leg, or it's that bro split, we want you to pick something that is absolutely perfect for you. Make it a non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth, like drinking water, like going to work. You make it so that it fits into your life, and you're not forcing your life to fit into it. So remember, before even lifting a weight, choose your routine. Consistency is the foundation that we're going to build on.